In the dense forests of Uttarakhand, there lies a forgotten village named Vairag, absent from modern maps and untouched by mobile networks. Once a thriving place, it had slowly disappeared from memory, until it became a rumor whispered by old truck drivers and forest guards. They said the earth beneath it was cursed, that the trees watched, that people went quiet there, even birds. A young cartographer named Raghav had made it his mission to rediscover such places. He was practical, skeptical, and armed with the latest satellite gear. When he heard of Vairag, it was just another red dot to mark, a trip to document, to prove the myths were nothing more than fog. He hiked in through the forest alone, as no guide agreed to go past the second river. Too quiet, one said, like the forest is holding its breath. The deeper he went, the more he noticed something wrong. No insects, no birdsong, no fallen leaves. The forest was neat in a way that nature should never be. By dusk, he saw the village, still and gray under the canopy, with moss-covered stone houses slouched like dying men. There was no wind, no sound, just the pressure of being watched. Raghav explored carefully. The houses were perfectly preserved, as if the residents had vanished moments ago. But there were no signs of life, no clothing, no food, no bones, just cold stone and shadows that felt too deep. In the center of the village stood a well, wide and rimmed in black rock. It emitted a strange hum when he got close, like low chanting at the edge of hearing. Around the rim were markings, concentric circles, hand-carved into the stone. Not decorative, restrictive, containing. Inside the well, he saw no bottom, just darkness that pulsed faintly. As he leaned over, something whispered from below in a voice that sounded like his own. "Raghav, don't look away." He stumbled back, and the hum stopped. The village went even quieter. That night, he camped inside a house near the edge of the village. As he tried to sleep, the wind began. Slow at first, then louder. But it wasn't wind. It was breathing. Deep, rhythmic, massive, like the earth beneath was exhaling. He ran at first light, but the forest had changed. Paths looped back on themselves. The trees closed ranks. His GPS refused to work. His watch spun in place. Time had no meaning here. For 3 days, or maybe 30, he wandered in circles. His food ran out. Water turned foul in his bottle. He began to hear footsteps behind him, slow, matching his pace. Sometimes it whispered from the trees in his voice, "Stay. You're already here." Eventually, Raghav stopped fighting. He returned to the village, to the well. Something inside it was waking. The earth trembled subtly. Cracks formed in the stone rings around the rim. The markings began to bleed dark sap, like the forest itself was weeping. And the whisper turned to laughter. Slow, echoing, ancient. He threw his gear into the well. Maps, compass, journal, all useless. Then he sat beside it, eyes wide, mouth moving but silent. He waits there still. Months later, a group of trekkers stumbled into the village during a forest expedition. Their GPS failed. Radios died. One of them, a woman named Rena, found the well. She peered down, curious. Inside, 2 pale eyes opened slowly. And from below, a voice said, "We remember you, Raghav." 2 months after the disappearance of the trekkers, the forest ranger station at Toligaon, 40 kilometers south of Vairag, began reporting anomalies. Compass needles twitching, sudden fog, distant sounds of bells tolling underground. Then one morning, all the birds were gone. Not just silent, gone. The rangers sent a drone over the forest to scan the deeper sectors. It flew steady for 3 minutes before the feed turned black. The screen flickered, and a single image froze on screen. A wide shot of the village from above. Stone houses in a perfect circle, the well at the center. And surrounding the village, what looked like unbroken carvings, stretching out from the well into the woods, like veins. The image pulsed once, then the drone crashed. When they reviewed the feed frame by frame, there was one frame, one flicker, where something appeared at the edge of the well. A shape. Not human. Not beast. No face. Just a silhouette taller than the houses, rising. The station was sealed, the footage classified. But by then, it was too late. Far away in Delhi, a reclusive woman named Asha Mehra, an archivist at the Geological Survey of India, received a request for ancient maps of the Himalayas. She pulled dusty scrolls from archives untouched for decades. That night, as she reviewed the oldest among them, drawn in ink and charcoal on cowhide, she found Vairag marked clearly. But it was surrounded by black hand-drawn rings, not contour lines, not rivers, warnings. One note, scribbled in a dying script, read, "They built the village to hide the wound. They built the rings to hold it in. Do not go below." Another read, "If it remembers your name, you are already lost." Then her phone rang. No caller ID. She answered. Nothing. Then a whisper. "We remember you, Asha." She dropped the map. Where the village had been, there was now only a burnt, black smear. The forest began to rot. Trees bled sap that smelled of rust. Roots grew into spirals. Mushrooms bloomed in impossible colors and patterns. Spirals again, always spirals. Animals fled or turned silent. People began dreaming of a well in the woods, even if they had never seen it. One ranger went mad and drew circles on every wall of the station until his fingers bled. He screamed one word over and over until they sedated him. "Below!" Asha, driven by obsession and fear, went north. She needed answers. She hiked into the forest alone, carrying only the ancient map and a journal of her findings. She found the village after 3 days. It was no longer silent. The earth around the well pulsed softly like a heartbeat. The air smelled of copper and salt. The stones of the houses were rearranged, as if the village itself had moved. The well had grown wider. The carvings around it now crawled with moss and black vines that hissed when touched. Asha stood before it and whispered, "I know your name." Something inside replied, "Then come below." And she did. Asha stepped over the cracked rim of the well. There were no stairs, no ladder, just a slanting tunnel, as if the earth had pulled itself open like a wound. The air was warm and damp. The walls pulsed gently, covered in a soft, dark moss that glowed faintly violet, enough to see, but not enough to understand. She walked. With each step, gravity felt less certain. Time pulsed like a heartbeat, speeding up, slowing down. Her journal entries blurred as she tried to write them. Entry 1, tunnel narrowing, floor soft, smells like wet rust, heard breathing again, not mine, not alone. Entry 2, past carvings, hands, circles, spirals, a word scratched in dozens of languages. Remember. Entry 3, saw a mirror, in the wall. But it wasn't me. It was someone wearing my skin, smiling wrong. At what should have been the 4th entry, only black ink swirled in spirals. She eventually emerged into a vast cavern, lit by soft luminescence dripping from the ceiling like dew. The ground was covered in relics, maps, compasses, shoes, journals, all rotting, all from people who had clearly come before. But there were no bones. She knelt to pick up a compass. It spun wildly, then cracked in her hand. And that's when she saw it. A door. But it wasn't made of wood or metal. It was a curtain of perfect black, like a hole punched into the world. Behind it, something moved. And then, it spoke. Not in words, but in memories. It showed her flashes, of Raghav, wide-eyed at the well, of the village before it was abandoned, of ancient monks carving the stones in desperation, chanting to keep it asleep. And then, a city, deeper still, below even the earth. Geometries that defied logic, beings that had no names, only shapes that unmade the mind. They had not come from the sky or another realm. They had always been here, and the well was not a prison. It was a seal, and the seal was breaking. Asha fled, or tried. The tunnel back was different, narrower, crooked, and it breathed, like lungs inhaling her presence. Her journal pages curled and rotted in her hand. The violet moss began to hiss, releasing spores that whispered her name. She screamed, and something answered in her own voice from just ahead. Then she saw the exit, a cold circle of moonlight. But standing between her and the exit was Raghav, or what remained of him. Not dead, not alive, changed. His eyes were pale, unfocused, his skin cracked like dry earth. He reached out a hand and in a hollow, distant voice said, "Only one may return. The seal demands it." Asha wept, but in the end, she nodded and stepped back into the dark. Raghav emerged from the well that night, barefoot, silent, eyes empty. He walked into the woods and vanished.